Welcome to Drowsy Histories, a place where history unfolds at an unhurried pace, accompanied by calm, low-light visuals that spare your eyes and invite reflection. Tonight, in calm and measured steps, we will explore 10 curious punishments that once kept order in communities during medieval era, not in blood-soaked spectacle, but in slow acts of humiliation, ritual, and occasionally surprising mercy. Each segment will linger beside rough timber, cold water, or jangling pots, inviting you to observe rather than recoil. Let the air grow still around you. Allow the hush of twilight to settle. Our first stop waits beside that wooden frame. The morning sun lifts gold over dew-tipped grass as villagers gather near the stocks. Crafted from stout oak beams, they stand waist-high, 3 hinged planks forming 2 narrow holes for wrists and 1 larger for the neck. The wood feels smooth, where countless hands have idly traced its grain during slow market hours. Yet splinters still look an unspoken hint that discomfort lies ahead. A low murmur ripples through the crowd when the constable arrives with today's offender. A miller who, it is said, stretched customers' grain rations with a little too much chaff. His shoulders tense beneath coarse linen as he kneels. The constable lifts the top plank. Iron hinges squeal softly, less a roar, more a weary sigh. Wrists slot into place, then the neck, and the wood closes with a muffled thud. A simple peg slides through drilled holes, locking plank to post. No chains clatter, no drums beat, only a sparrow chirps from the well roof. Stocks are a punishment measured in time, not torment. 3 hours, perhaps 6, stretch long when one cannot wipe sweat from brow or shoe flies from cheeks. Children wander by, eyes wide, some giggle, but their mothers hush them. Teasing is permitted, cruelty frowned upon. A baker's boy offers stale crusts to throw, yet few villagers accept. The miller once ground their wheat, after all. Instead, they deliver quiet scolds or bits of advice. Weigh fair next time before moving on to mend fences or stir pottage. In medieval thought, shame sank deeper than physical pain. Stocks displayed wrongdoing like a cautionary signpost. Here is what happens when trust is mocked. The community becomes both jury and clock, witnessing each tick of discomfort. Light rain may fall, soaking wool and chilling bone. Summer sun may redden skin. Neither element aims too maimenly to etch memory. Not every passerby wishes the miller ill. A kindly widow pauses, offers a sip of water raised to his lips. The constable allows it. Nourishment is not forbidden. Such small mercies remind onlookers that justice seeks balance, not revenge. When the appointed hour ends, the peg withdraws, plank lifts, and stiff limbs unfold. The miller rubs wrists, nods gratitude to the widow, and trudges home beneath the gaze of neighbours, who, having witnessed both fault and penantia, more inclined to trust his scales tomorrow. Evening returns. Dew gathers once more on oak beams, now empty and still. Crickets tune gentle strings nearby. The stocks wait, unhurried, for whatever confession the village may place within their frame next. The village brook runs clear beneath a moss-covered footbridge, its water whispering over smooth pebbles. Along the bank stands a stout wooden chair, battered yet sturdy, fastened to the end of a long oak beam that pivots over the stream like the arm of a slow, patient clock. By day the chair appears almost benign, framed by flag irises and darting dragonflies. Yet for certain offences chiefly scolding tongues, habitual drunkenness, or marital cruelty becomes the centre of a measured, very public ritual, the cucking stool. Imagine an early summer morning. Larks trill above wheat fields while villagers gather at the brook's edge, drawn by the sacrist's handbell. Today's offender is Margaret, a weaver's wife whose sharp words, neighbours say, have flayed more hides than her husband's loom. She arrives escorted by the reeve and 2 matrons appointed to watch for modesty. No shackles bind her richer presence, compelled by fine or seizure of goods if she refused, already signals submission to communal judgment. The cucking stool, also called the ducking stool in some shires, features broad arms and a leather strap across the lap. Margaret lowers herself under watchful eyes. The strap is drawn snug, more to steady than to hurt. Breezes carry the scent of meadow. Sweet sunlight dapples the water's surface. Yet anticipation weighs heavier than any chain. Villagers crowd the bank, some serious, some faintly amused. Children perch on fence rails, clutching poses of cow parsley as though attending a holiday fair. With a slow creak, the beam pivots. The chair swings high, then descends toward the brook. Ripples widen. A muted splash rises as Margaret's petticoats meet the water. For a heartbeat, she vanishes beneath the surface cloth, billowing like pale river. Weed before the reeve hauls the beam back. Water cascades from her sleeves, droplets catching sunlight in bright arcs. Gasps, whispers, a few restrained chuckles ripple through the crowd. She coughs, but breath returns quickly. The brook is shallow, the immersion brief by design. To medieval minds, water purified words that had run wild. A scold's tongue, cooled by stream or pond, might learn gentler cadence. Records show some stools mounted on wheeled sleds, paraded to the river amid jeering rough music. Pots, pans, and kettle lids clanged together in ribald rhythm. Such cacophony served 2 aims: to shame the offender and to vent collective tension, allowing neighbours to voice disapproval in noise rather than fists. Elsewhere, particularly in France and the English borderlands, punishment for marital cruelty or adultery might involve a nocturnal procession called charivari. Villagers armed with ladles, iron trivets, and bladder drums surrounded the culprit's cottage, stamping and clanging until sleep fled like a startled hare. If the offence persisted, the wrongdoer could be mounted backward on a donkey, face to the tail, led through lanes while onlookers rattled whatever would clang. No whip cracked. The din itself bruised pride far deeper than skin. Though humiliating, cucking was seldom lethal. Parish glebe books often limit dunkings to 3 or 5 dips, spacing them so breath may be caught. The water chosen is shallow, currents mild. Some borough charters stipulate that a midwife or elder matron stand nearby to hold proceedings if health falters. Fines sometimes replace immersion in harsh winters, acknowledging that justice loses grace when frostbite lurks. Our scene returns to Margaret. After the 3rd dunk, her shoulders slump, spirit cooled like quenched iron. The reeve signals finish. The strap loosens. 2 neighbour women offer blankets, wrapping her in coarse wool still fragrant with lye soap. One presses a beaker of warm ale into chilled hands' bitterness tempered by honey. No gloating words follow. Silence, tinged with relief, settles among bystanders. Punishment accomplished, the community pivots toward forgiveness, for tomorrow's weaving cannot thrive on rancour. The stool's dripping shadows merge with those of alder branches swaying overhead. Sparks of sunlight glint on wet wood before fading. Children resume games by the green. Mothers trade gossip in softer tones. Margaret, warmed and humbled, walks home between the same matrons who earlier stood sentinel. In their quiet escort lies a promise. The ordeal ends here. As dusk approaches, the brook resumes its ordinary song indifferent, yet somehow comforting. The stool waits, empty, an austere reminder that words carry weight, that communities once harnessed water, noise, and brief discomfort to steer social currents. Night drapes a hush over our medieval village, save for the soft creak of a smithy's shutters and the distant hoot of a barn owl. Inside the smith's low stone workshop, an object rests upon a wooden block, catching stray firelight. A curious cage of wrought iron, shaped vaguely like a human face. Its cheeks bulge in gentle curves, its brow arches high. At the mouth, angle a flat, tongue-shaped plate juts inward. This is the gossip's bridle, also known as the scold's bridle or Branken artifact of quiet yet potent intimidation. Iron bands, each finger width, curved to trace jawline and skull. The smith hammers rivets so smoothly that inner surfaces feel almost polished against skin intent to draw blood, only to encircle. At the front, the hinged bit perhaps 2 inches long angles downward. In some designs it bears small studs or a serrated edge. In others, a simple spoon-shaped plate. The symbolism is plain. A careless tongue shall meet cold restraint. Once forged, the bridle often receives decorative flourishes, an etched vine, a crude fleur de lis, even a grotesque animal snout. These adornments broadcast shame as much as function, transforming wearer into living cautionary emblem. Imagine a grey morning misting gentle drizzle. A woman, let us call her Alice, stands before the parish constable beneath the shadow of the market cross. She has earned the village's ire for spreading tales that a neighbour watered ale, that another neglected tithes, that perhaps the reeve's own daughter walks unchaperoned at dusk. True or not, the words rang too loudly. Sentencing followed the weekly moot. 1 hour in the bridle, paraded once round the green. Inside the church porch, 2 matrons secure Alice's hair, so no strands catch. The constable lifts the bridle as one might handle a fragile vessel, though its weight is unmistakably solid. Lowered over her crown, the iron cools scalp and temples. The bit slides inside her mouth, pressing gently on tongue. A small hasp clicks at the nape. A padlock seals purpose. Breathing remains easy through nostrils. Speech becomes muffled murmur, swallowed by iron. Outside, townsfolk gather curious, uneasy. Unlike the boisterous cucking stool, a bridal procession often travels in near silence. A bell ringer leads, chiming slowly. 1 toll for each sin of tale, bearing, they say. Alice follows, hands clasped, eyes lowered. Children peer around mother's skirts, merchants pause weighing cheese. Those who suffered her rumours feel mingled satisfaction and sympathy. Those untouched ponder how swiftly idle words can invite iron reply. Within the bridle, Alice tastes faint tang of forge soot. The bit rests on soft palate, making saliva gather. She cannot swallow except in small, careful motions. Every inhalation carries echo of her own breath against metal. Vision narrows through bars world framed by curved lattice, as though she peers from within a birdcage. Steps feel measured. each footfall a reminder of tongue's newfound stillness. The bridle's intent is clarity, not crippling. 1 hour may suffice, some statutes allow 2. If wearer swoons, matrons unlock padlock, loosen straps, offer honey water, yet memory lingers long after steel departs. Neighbors recall sight of iron-bound mouth when gossip tempts their own lips. Records show repeat offences rare. Shame proves effective mortar among village stones. Circuit complete, procession returns to church porch. Padlock clicks open, iron lifts away. Cool air brushes damp cheeks. Alice stretches jaw, swallows deeply, speaks no words, perhaps cannot yet. The constable offers a linen cloth. She wipes mouth, nods gratitude, steps into rain that now falls gentle as absolution. Some villagers incline heads reproach tempered by silent encouragement. Lesson learned. The bridle returns to smithy peg, iron darkening as forge embers ebb. It may hang months, even years, before next tongue offends. Meanwhile its phantom weight lingers in memory, a quiet governor upon village speech. A hush spreads across the churchyard as pale sun slips behind slow-moving clouds. In the nave, candles burn with steady beeswax calm. Beyond the porch, a small charcoal hearth glows ember red. Nearby rests a wrought iron bar short, thick, its surface pitted from years of heating and cooling. Today it lies cold, but parishioners know it will soon reach dull cherry heat, becoming both instrument and witness in a ritual older than any stone in the church walls. The ordeal by fire. We meet Osbert, a modest Reeves scribe accused of pilfering 2 silver pennies from the tithe chest. Evidence is thin, merely a missing coin, and whispered suspicion, yet rumour circles fast. Because no witness stands sure, village elders agree to the Iudicium Dei, the judgment of God. If Osbert's hands heal clean, innocence is proven. If angry blisters or festering wounds remain after 3 days, guilt is clear. The night before, Osbert fasts on bread and spring water. A priest leads prayers inside the dim choir, psalms echoing gently beneath timber beams. Neighbours keep quiet company, neither condemnation nor comfort, simply presence. Candles flicker, incense drifts. The quiet feels almost like a lullaby, wrapping anxiety in slow, measured breathing. Morning brings solemn choreography. The blacksmith arrives to manage coals, piling oak charcoal in the portable brazier until soft orange tongues lick wrought bars. Bellows sigh, iron warms, first brown, then crimson, then a deep, living red. The priest sprinkles holy water over hearth and bar, a like steam curls skyward, fragrant with resinous ash. Congregants watch in reverent stillness. The moment feels suspended between earthly heat and heavenly judgment. At the porch threshold, 3 fresh furrows line a short earthen path, each one measured precisely a foot apart. Osbert barefooted and calm despite trembling breath approaches. The priest wraps Osbert's forearms in linen strips moistened with holy water, leaving palms exposed. 2 beadle assistants lift iron tongs and present the glowing bar. Heat ripples the air, yet the parish hush remains unbroken. Osbert grasps the bar firmly, taking 3 slow stepstone across each furrow. Glowing metal sings soft against rising breeze. A faint hiss accompanies flesh, meeting radiant heat, but no scream splits the air, only a sharp inhale, quickly released. On the 3rd step he lays the bar upon a waiting stone, palms open for priestly inspection. Linen bindings close gently around burned skin, beeswax, salve, and crushed comfrey leaf are pressed against wounds, then everything wrapped in clean cloth sealed with wax. Osbert retires to the vicarage, nursing hands warm with dull ache, rather than sharp agony holy balm numbs without stupefying. Villagers resume chores, yet conversation flutters on every breeze. Will blisters rise? Will pus form? Children peek through lattice shutters, half hoping, half fearful. The priest visits morning and evening, changing wrappings beneath candlelight, whispering psalms that describe fiery furnaces safely endured by faithful servants. On the dawn of the third day, the church bell tolls once. Parishioners assemble. Osbert kneels before the altar rail. The priest unties wax seals layer by layer until linen falls away like shed chrysalis. Palms emerge, red, pink, tender, yet unbroken, no swelling, no foul-tinged moisture. A collective exhale fills the nave audible, almost musical. The priest raises Osbert's hands for all to see, intoning Deus probavit eum innocum. God has tested him innocent. A smile-shy relieved creases Osbert's face. The tithe chest key is returned to his belt. Murmured apologies drift from those who doubted. A modest feast of rye loaves and goat's milk cheese follows in the churchyard. Village harmony mended over shared fare. Not every ordeal ends so gently. Chronicles speak of cracked blisters and festering burns, of guilt confirmed by angry flesh. Yet even then, mercy sometimes intervened. Fines replacing exile, penance of alms replacing fetters. Over centuries, learned clergy questioned the ordeal's theology. By the Fourth Lateran Council, 1215, priests were forbidden to preside, and fiery judgments cooled into history. To modern minds, glowing iron seems brutal, yet medieval folk saw divine arbitration where worldly evidence faltered. The ordeal offered a path beyond stalemate, preserving communal peace. Its ritual the measured furrows, the prayers, the salve-wrapped peril in structured calm, turning potential vengeance into solemn theatre of trust. By evening, the charcoal hearth stands dark. Only faint heat lingers like distant memory. Children chase fireflies across grass. Osbert, bandaged but whole, sits beneath an alder, composing neat rows of script by last light, perhaps copying the very psalms that steadied his vigil. Twilight glimmers along a cobbled high street, torch flames wavering on half-timbered facades. Outside, the guild hall stands a curious contraption, an upright barrel with 2 holes bored near its middle and a leather strap slung across the top. By morning, it will cloak a habitual tippler in pungent oak and dried ale scent, transforming private vice into strolling cautionary tale. As church bells mark prime, villagers gather in subdued expectancy. The cooper himself, who once sold this very barrel to the inn helps, steady it upright. Its staves are scrubbed, but still seep faint malt sweetness. When Richard, the plasterer, thrice fined for unruly drink, is escorted forward, a hush falls. His arms slip through the openings. The barrel settles against shoulders with surprising weight. A leather strap buckles over chest to keep staves from rattling. Feet remain free, yet every step tips wood into shuffling wobble. The beadle leads with a staff capped by small bell. With each ring, townsfolk peer from shop doors, some tutting, others offering wry smiles. Children trot alongside, counting footfalls. 2 old women hand Richard a cup of clear well water kindness, wrapped in gentle rebuke. The path circles marketplace, past buttermongers setting out curds, then down to the river quay. The route is long enough that shoulders ache, cheeks flush, and the lesson etches itself against bone. No stone is thrown, mockery never rises to cruelty. The punishment lives in spectacle, not pain. Upon return, straps unbuckle, the cooper tips barrel off, Richard's shirt sticks to damp wood resin, oxhide fumes mingle with humble gratitude. By afternoon he resumes plastering cottage wall snow, subject of murmured anecdotes that will likely temper his tavern visits, at least for a season. Elsewhere in some English shires and Puritan colonious textile craft turns moral, a scarlet A for adultery, D for drunkard, or pair of ram's horns embroidered for unfaithful husbands. The letter must be large, stitched in contrasting thread, worn upon cloak or bodice whenever offender appears in public for weeks, months, sometimes life. Picture a linen smock on washline, newly sewn crimson A, drying in breeze, dye bleeding faintly. The humble garment becomes a living town notice board, each stitch tightening social boundaries. Many wearers move with heads held steady, eyes forward. Some quilts reveal attempts to unpick stitches at dusk-yet parish beadles, often inspect embroidery, renewing any faded floss. Over time, the cloth frays, but the story outlives fabric. Children retell it as caution, neighbours as whispered rumour, weaving moral memory into village tapestry. In parts of France and the Low Countries, tailors craft pointed hood scaptions, painted with donkey ears or sewn with straw horns. Adulterers, fraudulent traders, even lazy farmhands may parade in such attire amid clang of rough music. Garment and din merge, visual and auditory chords of shame vibrating town air, yet rarely drawing blood. Unlike stocks or flaming iron, shame garments inflict no bodily wound. Instead, they externalize wrongdoing, making invisible breach, visible if briefly theatrical. Tailors, coopers, embroiderers thus weave themselves into judicial fabric, their crafts doubling as moral texts. As evening deepens, the barrel rests against Guildhall wall, quiet resonance of earlier footfalls fading. Scarlet letters are folded away for night, capuchons hang in clergy vestry, donkey ears limp in still air. For now, village lanes echo only soft lute strains from an inn where ale flows, but perhaps not quite as freely in Richard's cup. Morning mist curls off pasture grass as a single church bell tolls slow and deliberate. Where one might expect the village swineherd to answer, today it is the town provost who appears flanked by clerks, bearing rolls of parchment and a solemn group of townsfolk. Ahead of them, tethered by a sturdy rope, plods an enormous sow, snout muddy, ears twitching at distant magpie chatter. She is not headed for market or sty, but to stand before the manorial court on charges of grievous harm. The trampling of a child, the cobbled lane hushed only yesterday by the sight of a drunkard's barrel, now witnesses an altogether stranger scene. Children peer from behind shutters, elders cross themselves. At the stone steps of the Guildhall, the clerk unrolls a narrow rug to protect the sow's hooves from slipping, a gesture that underscores the gravity of the hour. In medieval jurisprudence, even animalses, members of God's creation, could be answerable to law. Inside, sunlight streams through quatrefoil windows, landing upon a long oaken table. At its head sits the bailiff in fur-trimmed mantle, beside him a notary sharpening quill. A block of hay is placed near the defendant's post, so the sow may stand calmly, though not so comfortably as to imply favoritism. The rope loops to an iron ring in the floor. A constable keeps gentle hold. Opposite her stands a human advocate often, a priest or local juristab pointed to speak the beast's cause. This duty, peculiar as it seems, reflects an earnest concern for fairness. The sow cannot plead guilty or innocent. The advocate therefore offers mitigating circumstances. Did a broken fence allow her wander? Was a negligent keeper at fault? Quiet murmurs ripple through the gallery. The notary rises, voice steady. On the feast of Saint Apollonia, this swine, property of Pierre the baker, did violent harm to the infant Guillaume, aged 15 months, thereby causing mortal wounds. His words float among dust motes, suspended in bright beams. The clerk of the court swears to record proceedings faithfully, so that parchment may satisfy both ecclesiastical conscience and secular memory. A miller's wife recounts the tragic morning. Child toddling near common green, so rooting close, sudden, startled charge. Her tone remains measured, no anger cracks through. Next speaks Pierre, cheeks pale as raw dough. He confesses, pen opened accidentally while he chased a stray hen. He weeps quietly, cloth cap wrung in trembling hands. From the hay, the sow snorts, shakes straw from bristles oblivious to narrative unfolding about her. The bailiff withdraws with 2 aldermen to a small side chamber. No jury of 12 here-only town elders guided by precedent and canon law. Minutes stretch into hushed expectancy. Finally, they return. Standing, the bailiff pronounces, "Because the beast caused death, and its keeper's negligence is admitted, the sow shall suffer execution at dawn. Pierre will pay a fine of 12 sous to Guillaume's family and donate a wax candle to parish altar in perpetuity. A scribe notes each penalty. The advocate bows head, lips moving in silent prayer for beast and child alike. Sentence passes. Without cheer, just a cool rustle of garments as villagers disperse, hearts heavy but convinced that justice by their lights is served. To modern ears the trial seems surreal, yet medieval reasoning blended theology and social order. Moral universe. If animals could be instruments of sin, as biblical serpents, they must also submit to divine moral balance. Public assurance, a formal process, pacified communal grief and anger, preventing rash retaliation against owner or family. Hierarchy affirmed by subjecting even beasts to human courts. Society reaffirmed mankind's stewardship and responsibility over creation. Not all creatures faced death. Church courts sometimes excommunicated swarms of locusts or rats, issuing written bans that commanded pests to depart within 3 days, lest they be cursed. Though symbolic, such edicts underscored a community's petition for heavenly intervention when traps failed. Secular tribunals, however, reserved corporeal sentences for larger animal swine, bulls, even the occasional homicidal mare. Executions were swift, hanging, beheading, or, less commonly, burning. The carcass was seldom eaten, polluted by crime. It was buried outside consecrated ground. Return now to our sow's final morning. Mist lifts over the meadow as blacksmiths hammer a makeshift gallows beam into the ground beyond town gate. Pierre stands nearby, cap clasped, tears fresh. A priest murmurs Psalm 50, "Have mercy upon me, O God," as the rope is looped. Birdsong accompanies the creak of taut hemp, then silence descends, broken only by distant crow call. Back at the baker's yard, an empty sty smells faintly of bran and warm hay. Pierre repairs its gate with new oak plank. Driving nails in steady rhythm each strike a small penance. Within fortnight he purchases a young gilt, vows vigilance, and neighbours mindful of tragedy, yet relieved by closure resume ordinary chat about flower prices and the coming harvest. Evening drapes gold across fields, court parchments dry on scriptorium rack, ink settling into vellum fibres like memories into communal conscience. In a generation or two, the sow's story will soften into cautionary tale told at half-side part warning, part curious footnote of how medieval justice sought balance in every corner of creation. Moonlight slips across low stone cottages, catching glints of tin ladles and iron trivets clutched by villagers who gather in the lane. Someone strikes a pot-lid clangor signal, answered by rattling cowbells, wooden rattles, and an old hurdy-gurdy wheezing a single off-key chord. This is Charivari also called rough music, Katzenmusik, or skimmington. It is not a court-ordered punishment, but a spontaneous, highly choreographed burst of mockery wielded by neighbours when the formal justice system seems too slow, or a private offence screams for public venting. What sparks the noise? A husband known for beating his wife, a widow remarrying too soon, a cuckolded spouse whose injury begs redress, a miller cheating weights, yet escaping the stocks. Whatever the trigger, Charivari stems from a belief that harmonized villages' social musicas gone sour. To mend the discord, the community composes a sonic remedy just harsh enough to sting. Ringleaders move door to door at dusk, whispering plans. Housewives lend skillet lids. Children drag dry rib bones across washboards. The blacksmith supplies a massive triangle struck by horseshoe hammer. Masks fashioned from painted burlap keep identities. Half-veiled every one knows who's who, but anonymity grants boldness. Sometimes the culprit must endure the procession in person. More often, an effigy rides in place. Stuffed breeches astride a backward-facing donkey, or two men on hobby horses' own sporting a broom wife, the other a distaff husband, parodying role reversal or marital conflict, oil lanterns bob, a steady beat rise spots pans, bells syncopated by shouts, "Wake, wake, sleepers, all hear our noisy judgment call." The caravan halts before the culprit's door. Effigy hooves stomp. Mock priests pronounce charges in exaggerated Latin. If the offender refuses to appear or pay a small ale, fine, volume swells. The noise burrows under roof. Thatch rattles shutters, unsettles livestock. Villagers laugh yet tread a careful edge. Humiliation, not destruction, is the aim. At length the target emerges, perhaps sheepish, perhaps angry. An apology shouted over, clamour may suffice. A donated keg for revellers often seals peace. The effigy is then tossed into a village pond or burned outside the gate, noise fading to merry song before dispersing into night's cool hush. Elsewhere, particularly in parts of Germany and Italy, an actual wrongdoer might ride a donkey backwards through town, clutching its tail. Crowds hurl rye chaff, recite bawdy couplets, and ring handbell. The humiliation feels profound but leaves no scar, and when the culprit dismounts, normal life resumes with social balance restored. Rough music is a grassroots court, accessible, no clerks, no fees, only courage and cookware. Corrective focuses on behavior, not blood. Temporary Sound surges, peaks, ebbs. Afterward, silence welcomes reintegration. Chronicles hint that repeat offences dwindled. Few wished a second symphony beneath their lintel. Church authorities occasionally condemned charivari as disorderly. Royal edicts tried without lasting success to curb nocturnal noise. Yet most communities policed their own excesses. If a mob's mockery tipped toward violence, elders intervened, reminding all that tomorrow they must share wells and harvests side by side. When instruments finally rest, Lane returns to cricket chirps and distant sheep bleats. Sooty ashes of the effigy cool in moonlight, pots are scrubbed, wooden spoons rehung. The village sleeps easier, its social rhythm retuned. Morning sunlight slants across the bustling market square, illuminating heaped sacks of barley, pyramids of apples, and bolts of undyed wool. Vendors call in melodic cadences, haggling over farthings and half pennies. Within this hum of honest barter, temptation sometimes whispers an extra handful of grain scooped, a concealed wedge of cheese, a length of ribbon slipped beneath a cloak. For such small pilferings, many medieval towns favoured swift, symbolic fines over harsher torments. Fines measured not in blood or splinters, but in handfuls of feathers or flour. Picture a young apprentice named Beatrix reaching for a second scoop of rye when her coins cover but one. A sharp-eyed reeve notices, and soon a low wooden stool is placed beside the miller's scale. Instead of marching Beatrix to the stocks, officials levy a white fine. 3 full cups of finely sifted flour returned to the vendor, and a public apology recited under the awning. The punishment stings not because it breaks skin, but because it unfolds beneath the gaze of friends, future customers, perhaps a hopeful sweetheart. Why flour? Immediacy. The commodity involved becomes the tool of correction, restoring exact balance. Visibility. Flour clings to tunic and lashes. A dusting across cheeks marks guilt as plainly as scarlet thread. Economy. No need for wood, iron, or clerical parchment. Justice lives within the market's own measure. In coastal villages where herring nets dry on low fences, goose farms thrive. There, petty thieves might earn a drift's worth of down. Caught lifting a small purse, an offender stands while the reeve shakes a linen sack overhead. Feathers snow onto hair, shoulders and cloak, catching on spittle-damp lips when the culprit must proclaim a plea for mercy. Children laugh, elders nod. The scene lasts mere minutes, yet the memory-white flecks drifting on early Brieslingers' seasons. A purse lighter by a few coins recovers in time. Reputation, once dusted with white flour or feather down, takes longer to brush clean. Vendors weigh future trust carefully. Neighbours retell the image at hearth fires. Thus, a soft substance becomes a hard deterrent, no bruises, yet enduring consequence. Customary law often capped such fines, never more flour than the offender's own purse could bear, never feathers plucked from live birds, never humiliation prolonged past the noon bell. If penitent tears fell, and they often did, matrons might offer a damp cloth, reminding all that mercy follows confession. By late morning, breezes whisk stray feathers into gutters. Hens peck spilled flour near the baker's stall. Beatrix, cheeks still powdered, counts coins more carefully, placing exact measure of rye on the scale. The miller nods without comment. Business hums onward, slightly wiser. A pale dawn hush settles over the cathedral close. faint incense drifts from the great west door, doves coo in crenellated niches. Within these walls, stone and candlelight have long offered weary souls a refuge beyond secular reach. For all the harsh punishments we have traced stocks, bridles, barrels medieval justice also carried quiet threads of compassion. Here we meet them. A narrow postern gate swings inward, admitting a breathless fugitive Thomas the Cooper pursued for striking a Lord Steward in a tavern quarrel. Crossing the church threshold, he grips the heavy ring of the sanctuary knocker. Its iron lion's head booms once against oak. Pursuers halt outside, weapons lowered. By custom and canon, Thomas now enjoys 40 days' shelter. He receives a pallet near the north aisle, coarse bread, thin ale, and the counsel of the cathedral's almoner. During those weeks he may plead his case before royal justices, escorted safely, confess and accept banishment walking barefoot to the nearest port, sailing into exile under a white cross tabard, or negotiate compensation with the steward's kin, often measured in silver or service. Many choose the third path, restoring peace through coin and contrition rather than rope. In a crowded battlefield infirmary or a manorial hall after judgment, one might glimpse the slender poniard called Misericorde Mercy Giver. Though weapon by form, it served a softer purpose, ending the agony of mortally wounded knights or commuted felons when swords had already broken will. A single swift thrust through chainmail's gap sent pain into silence. Chroniclers speak of executioners sheathing axes mid-swing when a lord's messenger arrived with last-minute pardon. Instead, the condemned knelt, received a light touch of the misericorde to shoulder a symbolic death, followed by freedom under oath of good conduct. Kings, too, tempered justice. The English patent rolls list thousands of pardons. A poacher freed after joining a crusade. A baker absolved when plague left the town breadless. Even a highwayman spared for revealing accomplices. Such mercy was pragmatically enforcing crown authority by showing that law could bend without breaking. Church infirmaries tended those branded by disease rather than sin. Leper window small openings in chancel walls allowed the afflicted to watch Mass, receive Eucharist, and find fellowship beyond contagion's fear. Lay sisters looped wool beads, paternosters, into leprous hands, a solace weightless yet profound. Villagers sometimes paid a fine collectively to spare a neighbour harsher fate. Guilds offered Frithguild Fundspiece money to compensate victims, letting offenders resume work. At harvest, surplus grain was tithed to support families of those imprisoned, ensuring hunger did not double punishment. Thomas the Cooper emerges on his 40th dawn, an accord reached. 3 months' service repairing the steward's ale casks, and a small purse to the injured man's kin. He kneels by the lich gate, thanking the almoner who places a simple wooden tokena carved dove into his palm, reminder of mercy received and owed forward. Let the softness settle over you like cooled incense smoke. Hear distant vespers, feel dusk breeze, stir cloister herbs. Our journey through medieval punishments closes not in clamour but in calm absolution proof that even in sternest ages, gentle hands held the scales beside heavy ones. Good night. May your rest be light, your words kind, and your judgments ever balanced by mercy.